Box. This one needs a special knife today, so I'm using this one because it's my favorite. All right. Whoa. How exciting is that? It's a little tiny box. Like, tiny, tiny. Let's dive into this bad boy here. See what's up with this. It's amazing how much stuff you don't get now when you get this. So you got some manuals, strap, eyepiece. It's not even in plastic. USB cable, battery. Ooh, second battery. Sweet, 2 batteries. And then the body itself. The unveiling. And now it just comes in like tissue paper. It's amazing how much less this actually has. But there it is. That was the most uneventful box opening ever. I'm David from Levika Photography, and today I bring you the Sony a6400. And this is probably Sony's most important camera they've ever done. And why do I say that? Because this is the first time that they're actually listening to all the people that are reviewing their cameras. So they got a lot of stuff right in here. So anyway, let's just dive into this so I can explain it all to you. Looking at the difference in body design between the a6000, the a6300, and the a6400, not a whole lot has changed. And really visually, from the back of it, nothing has changed at all. The only difference that you can see right off the top is going to be the actual label, where it says what it is, and then the quick function dial setting for S and Q. Going from the front, there is no improvements in design. It's exactly the same. Depth-wise, exactly the same. What is changed on here? Well, the only major thing is you now have a slow and quick mode on the mode dial. And that is extremely handy. So basically that means that you can do time-lapse or slow-mo video directly from the mode dial, and you can kind of quick link that and be able to record on the fly for that. So that part is cool. Physically on the buttons, that's the only thing that's actually changed. Everything else is exactly the same. Nothing has changed physically outside of that. Now the back screen is still the same style screen, but now it has a bracket extension and goes up to there. Now everybody knows about this already. So here's my take on this screen. I love it. Absolutely love this screen. Not only has the image quality improved, it's a lot brighter during the day, there's no visual problems or anything. Now, one thing that I never talked about in a lot of my videos, and I don't think I've ever really mentioned this about the Sony cameras in general, but their LCD screens actually use less power than the eyepieces. Yes, this is true. You don't believe me? Go look up the specs anywhere. The eyepiece uses 2.6 volts versus the back screen using 2.1. So hardly anything. I think that's really just amazing. That also means that you're going to use like almost no amperage. I mean, nothing. So it helps with battery life. Now, the screen itself, compared to the a6000, is actually using about half a volt less power in general. So that's a bonus right off the bat. Now, battery life has also been extended dramatically. It's still the same battery, but the weird thing is, while I think about it, the battery compartment on the a6400 is tight compared to the a6000 and the a6300. So Sony batteries fit in here no problem, but aftermarket batteries are like getting stuck in this thing. So just be aware of that. That's the only one thing that's just slightly different that I noticed. It has improved the way it uses that battery dramatically. So now we're seeing somewhere between a 25 and 30% increase in life. And that's huge. This thing is now like I don't know, I'm going all day on one battery and not having to worry about it. Before, it seemed like it took two batteries, and you also, when the a6000 came out, it also had battery leak down. So if you left a battery in there, it would eventually just kind of drain itself down overnight. That doesn't happen with this one anymore. It seems like all that stuff has been fixed. Voltage control has been dramatically improved, and functionality dramatically improved with leak down pretty much down to nothing. So you don't have that issue anymore. It doesn't matter if you're using Sigma lenses, Tamron lenses, or whatever. Just turn the camera off, and then the next day you'll notice that your battery is still where it was when you left it off. So that is pretty darn nice. Still not weather sealed, and you know, we still have the same little pop-up flash. Pro tip: you can bounce off the ceiling just by pulling the flash back like this, and you do get really nice ceiling bounce. The things that I think a lot of people aren't mentioning that you need to know about. So let's start right off with image quality, because that is the most important thing to me. And one of the reasons why I decided to grab this. A lot of people say the image quality didn't change, but it did, and it did for the better. Sony's color profile actually has improved. So here's a comparison between the a6000, the a6300, and the a6400. So what you're looking at here is the Sony a6000 in this window, and then the Sony a6300 here, and the a6400 here. And basically you're looking at my quick test chart. And within my quick test chart, I've got this color matrix. And this actually provides me some good information right off the bat, because these are all colors that I can easily reference. And one thing that I can tell you that's surprising is the a6000 is way oversaturated, and it's always been like that. That's just the way it is. Anyway, there's this test out there. It's called the CIE 1931 test. I don't have Imatest, which is the software you use to actually score this type of stuff, but I do my own color calibration, and I can tell you, basically what cameras take a lot of color calibration to get to the right point versus cameras that don't. So anyway, the Sony a6000 over here in the corner, this first one, this camera, according to Imaging Resource, off of their test scores, is 11% oversaturated, and it definitely looks it here. Now the a6300 over here is, I think it's 6% oversaturated, or right around there, and that pretty much goes along with Imaging Resource's results. Now their actual CIE 1931 error rating for both of these is just under 6%. I want to say this is 5.7 and this is 5.8 or 5.9 off the top of my head. So what I can tell you is that the a6400 is going to have a lower CIE 1931 error rating, which means it's going to be just more accurate in color in general. The blues in this part of the scale are a lot closer to what they should be in real life. They're still supposed to be slightly more purpley down here, and probably, I want to say the a6400 is actually slightly undersaturated in some of the color spectrum, like the yellows now are slightly undersaturated, but they're a little bit brighter and they do actually look a little bit better. But the problem that Sony's always had was that the yellows were always slightly off and the blues were always dramatically off. It's not like perfect, but it's definitely a lot closer. And out of all the cameras that I've tried from Sony so far, this is hands down the most accurate, so I have to give Sony that. And this also carries over to video. If you're just using the standard color profile, if you decide to stick with that, you're going to get really accurate color. So yeah, kudos to Sony for that. And to give you an idea, only the best cameras out there right now are at 4%. So it's not like anybody has broken that barrier. As far as noise goes, you're not getting a boost in the sensor, but you're getting a boost in the processing. So the noise is still the same, but the image quality has improved color-wise. Now the only problem is on the a6400 we still don't have uncompressed RAW. Why won't Sony do this? We do have 14-bit RAW, which is huge over the 12-bit RAW that we had on the Sony a6000, so that is a dramatic improvement. but still no uncompressed RAW function. I really wish they had that. So Sony, please, uncompressed, come on, you can do it. But it is 14-bit and JPEG quality is excellent. A few extra features that this thing got that you should know about. So the other thing they did is they actually increased the phase detection points from 169 to 425. So that means it's better tracking in video, and it's really, really smooth. The thing I like about it is in this situation I can move back, forward, be able to move around in my space much easier without having to worry about the autofocus not being able to track me correctly. Now it also works well for objects like this. So now I can sit there and go, oh, look at my phone. This is what my phone looks like. Isn't that exciting? Ooh. But anyway, it allows me to show you products easier, and from a vlogging format, this is really ideal. Right or left eye focusing, they added that. That's also a really nice feature, so you can select which eye you want to go with now when you're focusing on your model's eye. HLG log for video. I don't know much about HLG log, but a lot of people say that it increases the dynamic range just a little bit more over S-Log 2 and 3. I don't really use those at all. I usually use just the neutral setting on the camera, and I'm happy with that because everything I do is for YouTube. I don't make commercials for anybody, so you know, I'm definitely not Martin Scorsese. So yeah, you know, just if you like doing log stuff and you like color grading, then that is totally for you. Now the other weird thing that Sony did that you're seeing right now is they expanded the ISO from 25,600 to ISO 32,000 in video. And in photo mode, they did an ISO expansion of 102,400, which is pointless because this, I think, actually looks pretty bad. So why would you go over 6,400? I have no idea. But anyway, they expanded it, so why not? And yeah, it's like super jello-y. Jello. Yeah. So the rolling shutter is pretty bad. I don't know why Sony hasn't overcome this, especially on their APS-C size cameras. You just don't see rolling shutter on Micro Four Thirds, and Micro Four Thirds is only a hair smaller than these sensors. It's not like it's dramatically smaller, it's just a little bit. And yeah, it's just so weird. It's so jello-y. Jello-y. Now the other thing I'm excited about is the 1:1 ratio. And this is big for me because I do a lot of product and I shoot a lot for people's Instagram accounts. I do a lot for Amazon, a lot of small businesses on Amazon, and I do a lot for small businesses that sell stuff on eBay. And all of those formats require you to shoot square, or at least they want square in the end. So having that square format makes my life so much easier because that means I don't have to crop. In the end, I can compose it square in the camera. That to me is a lifesaver, so I love that. And for those of you that skipped from the A60, that didn't buy into the a6300 or the a6500, this does actually have a bunch of other features that you may not know about. One of the biggest is, if you can see it right here, the little C, the copyright setting. So finally, the APS-C size cameras are getting the same recognition that the Pro cameras are getting, meaning that you can put your copyright on your photos in your EXIF metadata. To me, that's also important because I shoot a lot of weddings, and I always use one of these as a secondary camera. The A6000, the A7R, the A7, and the A7S didn't have that functionality when they came out, which really drove me crazy. So here's another thing that drives me crazy about Sony cameras in general, and I hope someday they actually fix this. Their file system is awful. So basically there's no way to change this, there's nothing you can do about it. If you go into your DCM directory, which is usually where the pictures are stored, you'll see this folder, this 100 MSDCF. As the camera system writes files to your camera, for every 9,000 files, it creates a directory. So this one eventually it'll add 1001 MSDCF and keep adding on and on. Now if I click in this directory, What you see now is raw files that I have edited, so that's what these XMP files are for. But the ARW files are the actual raw files from the computer, and then there's JPEGs in here as well. Sometimes I just work in my directories. But anyway, the problem is this goes from 0001 to 9999 and then starts all over again. So if you shoot as much as I do and you copy these images into another directory that, like, let's say you've been doing landscapes for a while and you want to keep them all in one directory because you're working in one region, like let's say Tano National Forest, and I want to keep all my images of Tano National Forest in one directory that I've been shooting for the last 4 years. Well, because these files name over each other, when you go to move your raw files or JPEGs into those directories, it might try to overwrite them because you already have files with the same file name in there, because it only writes them from 0001 to 9999. So that's an issue. That drives me crazy. Why don't they expand it so it just keeps writing a file number or putting an alphabetical number in front of that file number? I don't know. I don't get why they don't do that. Now, the other thing that's really annoying about this is where they put the movies. Now, those of you that are Sony owners already know about this, but in every camera system out there that I've ever used, they always put the movies directly in the DCM folder with the photos. Not Sony. You have to go into Private, M4 Root, Clip, and this is where you'll find your 4K files. Now, if you're not recording in 4K and you're recording in 1080p, then you need to go to Private, AVCHD, and then this BVMW, and then into Stream, and that's where you'll find your 1080 clips. There's none in here right now, but anyway, world's most annoying file system. This is one of the few things that still pisses me off about Sony. So Sony, please fix this. Now, this is a $20 lav. This is the Power to Wise off of Amazon. It's got a pretty long reach. So from here, this is how long the reach is. That's actually pretty good. That's as close as I need to be. Now I've got no problems picking up any audio from the wind or anything like that, but I can still walk and blog and not have to worry about wind. So this is a good example of an alternative to the microphone problem that everybody bitches about because they can't use their boom mics in a hot shoot. To me, this is way more ideal. So anyway, let's keep going here just so you can see exactly what this is like. As a blogging camera, I really think that this is actually the most ideal setup now. And the reason why is mainly because when I'm blogging, and a lot of people don't really realize this, but with cameras with flip out screens that come out from the side, your eyes have a tendency to focus on the side that it comes out on. On my OMD E1 Mark II, it came out on this side, so I'd always look over here constantly. Now the lens is right in front of me. I've got sunglasses on, so this isn't exactly helping. But if I'm sitting there looking at the lens, I'm looking at you, and with the screen up behind it, it's very easy for me to see where I am on the screen without taking really my eyes off the center of the lens. When it's off to the side, it gets a lot worse, and it's more obvious, especially if you're not sure of your environment, that you're looking away. So I always kind of preferred the flip out from the side until I started using one for a long time. Now I actually prefer the flip out from the top. So I didn't think I was going to like this, but I do. So anyway, there you go. There's the screen. So two other things I wanted to mention were the touch focusing in video is really quite nice. It just pulls like so smooth. So the other thing that's really nice is the buffer capacity on this, and the way it interacts with the card. You can now access the menu system. So I'm shooting in RAW right now, and if I hold this down and load the buffer up, now you can see it's writing to the card, but I can still get into the menu and move around. This was something you couldn't do before, so that is really nice. I can even play back stuff while it's recording, and it's still recording. Alright, so while the touchscreen has improved, right now I'm touching the screen, all I'm doing is moving the focus points around. If I touch any of this stuff, nothing happens. You know, Olympus, in my opinion, has the best touchscreen in the business. Sony still has a ways to go, even though they fixed a lot of the issues with this. If you bring up the quick menu, you cannot access any of this stuff via touchscreen. It all has to be done on the roll dial. The menu system. To a new user, a new photographer, this is very convoluted. To somebody that's been shooting for a while, it's not really that bad. So let me just take you through this really quick so you have a good understanding of how this works. So under the camera tab, this is 14 submenus of stuff. And all of this stuff is shooting related. So anything that's photography related is going to be under the first tab. As far as autofocusing, changing your file formats, ISO stuff, whatever. It's all in that section. In the second camera tab, the first 3 menus are movie related. So anything you need to do video-wise, it's going to be in the first 3 tabs, and that includes setting your microphones and doing whatever. Now, in the other tabs, the next 6 are all internal settings, the way the camera works. So it can be both video and photo related. So this is where it gets kind of confusing, because a lot of the things that you expect to be under the camera thing are not. They're in here. So a perfect example is silent shooting. You have to go to this menu to get to it. Same with choosing your curtain shutter, whether you want it to be electronic front or just regular. And release without lens, release without card, etc. Power zoom settings are also in this area. So this is, again, is a configuration of how the camera actually works. Finder, monitor, display buttons, zebra settings, all this stuff is in these last 6 menus. And setting up your custom keys is also in this menu because it's the physical traits of the camera. So then we go to the networking, and this is exactly what you'd think. Send a smartphone, send to your computer, control with your smartphone as a remote, turning your remote on, and this is new, and this is the Bluetooth settings. I would love to show you how this works, but I don't have any Bluetooth accessories for this yet. So as they come out, you'll be able to see how it works. But it's pretty simple. It's like setting up Bluetooth on your phone. Just looking at it, it's not that different. You pair it and you can display the address. Not a big deal. Going back to the menu button brings you back. Your playback menu settings are here, and this is where you can go in and rate and do stuff. Now under the toolbox, this is all of this stuff of how the camera works internally versus how it works mechanically. So that's the difference between this tab and tab 2. Last but not least, setting your favorites. If you don't want to dig through the menu to find something and it's not something that you have in your main menu, then you can add it to your favorites and keep it here, so when you access this tab quickly you can get to it without having to go through the entire menu system. This is really handy. I actually used the crap out of this. So that's the menu system. Not a whole lot has changed. It's just they took out the Play Memories app and you can no longer download applications, but the camera now does time-lapse internally, so you don't have to worry about that. So there you go. Alright, so let me just sum this up for you. Sony is now adulting, which is cool. This is the first camera body that they've actually put out that doesn't have a ton of new features, but more of an actual upgrade where they just addressed all the issues that people were complaining about. And they're actually starting to listen to their customer base, which is, to me, is amazing. It's like it's about time. The fact that they've addressed the buffer issue, that's huge. The overheating issue, that's way huge. I have had 0 problems with this thing even trying to put up a temperature gauge, and I've used the crap out of it. And the fact that they're trying to get more towards neutral color for professionals, I think that's just awesome. They're really thinking of this as like, this subdued camera that can just kind of do everything, and it does it all really well, and that's what this really does. So anyway, I'm glad to see that they're doing that. Now for those of you that are looking seriously at this camera but are complaining that it doesn't have IBIS, in-body image stabilization from Sony is just okay. I'm not really a fan of it. On my a7R3, for photography it works really well, but in video it's just kind of mediocre. So I wouldn't get too excited about it. You're better off getting an image stabilized lens and using that instead if you really want it. But if you really want IBIS, I can almost guarantee you that by August of this year, 2019, that they'll probably come out with the a6700, which will be the same thing, but with IBIS. So what do you do with the gear that you've got if you want to upgrade to this camera? Well, a friend of mine and a friend of the channel, this guy Don here in Phoenix, he created a website called gearoffer.com. And you guys got to go in and check this out. I think it's actually going to be a killer marketplace. He's still pretty much in the development stages of it, but he's towards the end of that. So he's got it to where it's fully functional, and it's actually up and running right now, and there's some actually pretty good stuff on it, but it's not a huge amount of inventory. So anyway, if you're here in the US and you're looking to sell your gear or you're looking to buy some gear, this is a great site to go to. It's gearoffer.com, and it basically works like eBay versus sending your gear in to get it evaluated and somebody just buying it or reselling it for you in a store. So I think it's actually a great option. I hope you guys like this review. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, subscribe to my channel for more information like this, and we'll talk to you guys later. See ya.